Hi everyone, here's a really quick video on how to install OneUptime in your infrastructure. There are two ways to install OneUptime. One is the Docker Compose install and the other is the Kubernetes install, Kubernetes and Helm install. We will walk through Docker Compose install in this video. Kubernetes install is in the other video as well. If it's not already, we'll make a video for it. We recommend Docker Compose install for hobby projects or home labbers or any of that, like any of those use cases. We do not recommend Docker Compose install for production use cases at all. The reason is with Docker Compose, you have this one server where all the services are installed, and if the server goes down, the whole OneUptime instance goes down with it. And and when that happens, monitoring stops, your status pages are down, which you've built with OneUptime. So we do recommend using Kubernetes and Helm for production use cases. If you are looking at hobby use cases or testing OneUptime in your company on a server, on a VM, please feel free to do a Docker Compose install. All right, let's begin. So we have this guide on GitHub that'll help you get started. The first thing you need to do is you need to clone the OneUptime repository from GitHub, which I have already done on the server. So if I CS, you'll see OneUptime repo is already cloned. So if I go into OneUptime and ls here, you'll see all the files that are in the repo. Okay. So I've cloned the OneUptime repo. I have cd'd into the directory as well. The next thing I need to do is I need to switch to a release branch. It is already on release because I've already moved or changed to the release branch. The reason you need to move to the release branch is because we have releases on that branch. Master branch is quite unstable, so please don't run Docker Compose install on master. We recommend you to run it on release. All right, once you've done that, you need to copy config example env to config env. I've already done that here as well. This is the config example env, and you just need to make a copy of this file and call it config.env. These are your environment variables for this project. So if I show you how this file looks like, you need to change two environment variables here. One is the host environment variable. This is exactly where your OneUptime server will be hosted on, or a domain where your OneUptime server will be hosted on. This particular server will be hosted on my personal domain. So I say oneuptime.nawasnala.com. Host can also be the IP address of the server, or a public IP address, or a private IP address of the server. That's also possible. So feel free to point it to a domain if you like, or have an IP here if you like. So both of these are very possible use cases. By default, this is localhost, so you need to change this thing if you want to access the OneUptime service from outside the server. The other thing you need to change is HTTP protocol variable. Since this domain is hosted on Cloudflare, I will be using Cloudflare Universal SSL to host OneUptime. And this needs to be changed to HTTPS in that case, because an SSL certificate will be provisioned for me. So you need to change this to HTTPS. You also need to change all of these secrets, even if you're doing hobby install as well, and change these to random long values as well. And the reason for that is we have database passwords here, we have encryption keys here. Please make sure you change it, otherwise you risk losing your data, or you risk leaking your data. Once you have done all of these steps, so once you have pointed it to a domain, change the HTTP protocol side of things, and you have change this thing, you basically write to a file and save the file. Please also make sure you have Docker installed on this machine, so you can check by typing in Docker. You you have Docker, and you also need to have Docker Compose installed as well. So once you have all of these installed, what I'll do is I'll not run npm start because I don't have node installed and npm installed. I can actually follow these steps instead. It says I need to run this command on my machine, and this command on my machine gives me an error because it cannot bind to port 443. It needs sudo access. So I'll basically run the sudo command instead. So this sudo command will bind my ports on this machine properly as well. So if I run this, all it does is it basically reads the environment variable from this file, and once it has read environment variables from this file, it sets it to environment, it exports it, and then it runs Docker Compose up. That's all it does, honestly. So if I press enter, please ignore all of these warnings that you see. It says warn variable is not set. Please ignore all of these warnings that you see. This was really fast because I've pulled all of these images earlier when I was testing. But if you're running this for the first time, it'll start pulling those images. So it'll take like few minutes of your time to pull all of the Docker images, and eventually it'll run all of these images. Once it has done, once it is done running, the next step you need to do is you need to have the host name which you've set in config.environment. You need to point it to that server. So in this example, I have a host name which was oneuptime.nawasthandala.com, and this domain is hosted on Cloudflare. So what I'll do is I'll create an A record to the public IP of the server. So public IP of server, and it should point it to oneuptime.nawasthandala.com. And I've already done that on Cloudflare. I'll not actually show you how to do that on Cloudflare. Or any other DNS server of your choice. There are plenty of resources out there. So all you need to do is you need to create an A record with the public IP of the server, which you get it from a cloud provider, point it to a domain which you've set it on your host environment variable. And once you have done that, you can copy this particular domain or host. You can go back, paste it in your browser, press enter. It actually logged me in, but I'll actually log out, honestly, because I was testing with my test user. So you'll basically see the screen after you have done that. So you click on register a new user. So I can say new user on uptime.com, sample. It doesn't really matter what you have, but please remember your password and username. Otherwise you would have to create a new user again. Once you have done that, you'll see this project. You'll see this page which will ask you to create a new project. You can actually create a new project. You could say project, click on create project, and that's basically how you install OneUptime on your server. It's really that simple. Thank you so much for watching. If there's anything I can do for you, please let us know.